You guys won't believe this, but another head coach in college football got fired this weekend. Hugh Freeze is out at Auburn after losing at home to Kentucky 10-3. This game was going to play out one of two ways. Auburn was going to lose at home to Kentucky and fire Hugh Freeze, or Kentucky was going to lose on the road to Auburn and they were going to fire Mark Stoops. It was basically whoever loses this game will be getting rid of their head coach, and Auburn did the impossible and lost to a truly terrible Kentucky team 10-3. And I can't emphasize this enough, at home in Jordan-Hare. Before we get started talking about Hugh Freeze and just why this was such a horrible, terrible idea, if you want more college football content from me, please subscribe, like, share, but mainly subscribe, because that is what I'm told you're supposed to do. So after going 15-19 through 3 years at Auburn with a 6-16 SEC record, the Tigers have fired another head coach, which would bring their buyout total to about $52.5 million, which maybe that means it's time to look at your athletic department, your athletic director. Not quite sure the situation there, but it seems like a bad one. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. I want to talk about why Hugh Freeze was never, ever, ever going to work. If Auburn wants you to be their head coach, that's a sign that you're the wrong hire. If Auburn is picking up the phone, calling you and extending you an offer, you already know you're not the guy. They can't make good choices. I don't believe in consulting firms. I believe that Auburn needs one. I believe that Auburn is not capable of making the correct decision for themselves. But the main reason that I thought Hugh Freeze was never going to work at Auburn was because they did not hire him to bring Auburn football back to the promised land. They hired him specifically because he beat Nick Saban. They hired him to beat Alabama. Weirdly enough, Hugh Freeze has done that. He's beat Alabama before. He's beat Nick Saban before. What else has he done outside of call an escort on a university-issued phone? Couldn't tell ya. He coached a game from a hospital bed once. That was fun. But they hired him to beat Nick Saban, and then Nick Saban promptly and immediately retires. I do not believe that was because of Hugh Freeze, but I also understand it. Maybe you don't want to be around the guy. He seems like the worst. So now you have a Hugh Freeze whose only purpose in life is to beat Nick Saban and golf. And he no longer has that Nick Saban thing going for him, so he just puts all his time and energy into golf. And what I think is the real, tragedy of Hugh Freeze at Auburn, not counting that Hugh Freeze is a deeply unlikable person with some crazy views who's done some pretty awful things before, is that Auburn had the talent. Their defense, they didn't touch the transfer portal. They were a very, homegrown, really strong, good defense, which is probably why they decided to promote DJ Durkin. If you're wondering, wow, if Auburn's defense is so good, why isn't DJ Durkin a head coach somewhere else? You could just look that up. But, so they had a strong defense, and you had a really strong haul in the portal. Eric Singleton Jr. is a wide receiver. Cam Coleman is a phenomenal receiver. It's remarkable he's playing football at Auburn. That's how good of a receiver he is. It was a highly graded offensive line coming into the season, and the only real missing piece of the puzzle was, can Jackson Arnold be what they wanted him to be? And for Hugh Freeze to whiff so badly twice in a row on quarterback decisions, Jackson Arnold has sucked. He's been terrible. Following Peyton Thorne, who was also terrible. Just back-to-back complete and total misses in the transfer portal, evaluating your quarterback, when Auburn is kind of what people sort of joke that Iowa is. Auburn's defense is really good. They are one of 3 teams to not allow a team to score 25 points this year. The only other 2 teams are Ohio State, Indiana, and Auburn. They have a good defense. They have skill position players. They have good wide receivers. They just are so dumb. And you look at it where there's talent on that roster. Last year, I think, was a more egregious example, even though it applies to this year as well. Auburn consistently playing in close games and losing. And if you look at sort of Auburn is not really getting blown out a ton. It does happen. It happened last year against Georgia, but even this year. Close loss to Georgia, close loss to Kentucky. If you're consistently losing close games, and there's no improvement over that, because Auburn was losing close games last year, for there not to be any sort of jump, Because normally the way it goes is if you're losing a lot of close games, it usually works the next year that you start to win some of those. That hasn't happened for Auburn. They just keep losing. Well, we were at that Georgia game specifically this year. That was one of the worst officiated games I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen an officiating crew so bad that they literally fired them in response to it. But at the same time, Auburn had like 15 yards of offense the second half. They are just a team that the second something goes wrong, they collapse, they're done. It's dead on arrival. That's a sign of a poorly coached team. It's a sign of a team that just does not have what it takes. And it doesn't help when the only identifiable factor of your head coach is that he's always golfing. He's never actually coaching your football team. That's not ideal. And he's not a nice guy too, and that doesn't help either. And so Auburn has done it again. They made a bad choice, and everyone said, hey, that's a bad choice. And they're like, War Eagle, who cares? And we're going to see them try to do that again. The only thing that I think might help Auburn out is because this is such a competitive coaching cycle already. You're competing with Florida, LSU, Penn State, people who are going to want those jobs way more than they want Auburn. Auburn won't get their first choice. And if it's Auburn's first choice, it's a bad choice. If it's Auburn's second choice, it's a bad choice. Honestly, you have to get down to number 5 on that list for it to be okay, well, Auburn didn't want him that bad. He's probably a good hire. I don't know who they go with. I don't know the strategy Auburn takes here because they just aren't going to be able to compete with what those other schools have to offer. And I know this isn't a good comparison right now just with the mess that's LSU, but that's an athletic department that is firing coaches consistently now, that is making bad choices. Doesn't seem like a super stable job that someone's going to want. It's just silly. Auburn football is silly. And what's crazy is I loved it there. I had so much fun. And hey, Arkansas, if you're watching this video, don't hire Hugh Freeze. It seems like something you would do. Just don't. Just don't. If you like this video, if you want to hear what I inevitably am going to have to say when another head coach gets fired next weekend, make sure you subscribe.